Hello, I switched the news this morning and looking at all the different various updates, and one of them was that the President of the United States and his wife have both got the coronavirus. And today I'm doing day two of our 31-day challenge about different values, and today's value is responsibility. So I can't help but talk a little bit about that and about responsibility. And also, when I looked up quotations on responsibility, they're all very positive. They all talk about the importance of responsibility, why responsibility is vital in our lives. And I've just got this little theory in my head I'd like to share, in that there has to be a balance of responsibility. And sometimes the problem is too much responsibility. So one of the quotations that I came across, which I do agree with, is "with great power comes great responsibility." And as we've had this pandemic going now for, I don't know when it was officially declared, but obviously it's been spreading since January, and different people have had different opinions about it and how to deal with it. And my personal opinion, I don't think President Trump was doing a very good job on it, and didn't seem to be very positive towards things like wearing masks. If you look at him walking around and the people around him, they weren't being too careful from what I could see. And he was also holding rallies with people in person in places where there was actually high levels of the virus. So there wasn't, I would say there's an example of very low levels of responsibility, not really caring for the people as much as he could or their health. And he has great power. And so him resulting in getting the virus was almost inevitable. And hopefully it will help him to think a little bit more that he's not invincible and that he needs to take more responsibility for himself and others. We can hope. Anyway, there's an example of a person who does need to take a lot of responsibility, a person in a position where you can influence a lot of people. Obviously, I totally get that. But I think the people that I'm speaking to understand responsibility really well. And the problem with responsibility is, if we have too much responsibility, it can result in lots of feelings of guilt, lots of feelings of blame, and lots of feelings of shame. So I think there's definitely a balancing act to be held here. I understand, again, the need to be responsible and to do kind acts towards people as best we can. And there's a whole movement, and people talk about the importance of kindness, including myself. Very important to be kind to others, to be responsible for our actions in that way, and also to be responsible for ourselves and try to be kind to ourselves as much as we can too. But there's another side to responsibility that people don't talk about, and that is, let's say if you feel 100% responsible for everything in your life. Well, first of all, if you see the world in that way, then you can see everybody else in that way too. So the homeless person on the street, it would be very easy to blame them and say, oh, well, he or she, it was their responsibility to behave in a certain way and they didn't. That's why they ended up on the streets. But I don't think that's a very good way or very compassionate way of seeing things. There's a lot of circumstances, mental health challenges, financial situations, why they ended up in that situation. And we see that for people who are, let's say, very poor or really struggling. But then what about for the very wealthy people too? Again, you may say, oh, they really took responsibility for their actions and they've made potentially good choices and they've worked very hard and they took responsibility for their life and they got it. Are you sure about that? Because if you say that this person who's really struggling, who's had these mental health challenges, who's ended up even losing his or her home, maybe you can actually say the same thing for the very so-called successful person or wealthy person. Actually, again, it may have been the circumstances that led to their situation, their upbringing, their parents, their genetics, the country that they were born in, the fact that they met a certain person and that led to a certain thing. So a lot of these, I've noticed a lot of these personal development books and motivational people always talking about, be 100% responsible for your actions and be 100% responsible for thoughts and all that stuff. But I think it's leaning a little bit too much for some people. And so there's a need for a balance between the two. That's what essentially what I'm trying to say. And I think for myself personally, it's easy for me to feel as if I'm too responsible for things. Let's say right now I'm doing this Facebook Live or YouTube. It took me a while before I started doing this, and I probably hesitated for years, I think. And it's because if I feel very responsible of what I'm saying, I want to make sure I say the right thing. But then if we try to be too responsible, we end up hesitating too much and not doing things that we're passionate about, not sharing so much, not speaking up because if we're worried about the consequences or we don't want to get it wrong or make a mistake. We can't do things perfectly. And so I'm a little bit less harsh on myself, and maybe I'm a little bit more irresponsible. I don't think so much about the consequences of what I'm doing. So I'm sharing some ideas here, but I didn't spend hours planning exactly what I was going to say because I don't have that time, and it doesn't feel so natural to do that. So it's a little bit of a controversial opinion or viewpoint. I'd be interested in your thoughts. But I think there is a balance to be had with the whole thoughts and words about responsibility. And yes, we do need to have responsibility for ourselves and others and the actions we do. But whenever you want to be playful or have a break or to do something or to try something new, there needs to be the sense of irresponsibility, at least for a little bit, where you can have some fun. You don't want to hurt anyone else or harm anyone, but you just want to be a bit light and playful. And so my message for today is practice responsibility, especially if you're in a position of power. But if it's not going to affect anyone else, then you can be playful with it too. Love to hear your thoughts about that. Do you think we should be 100% responsible for all our thoughts, all our words, all our actions all the time? Or do you think that our environment, our genetics, and our circumstances actually have a big part to play, as psychology has often found too? Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks a lot for watching, and appreciate it. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.